Hello, Om Shanti, good evening, and a very warm welcome for our session today. All of you, I believe, have been having a great time, and today's session promises the same. Our topic for tonight's talk is overcoming jealousy. So, why do we feel hatred and jealousy? What is the root cause of jealousy? And how do we get rid of jealousy? So, to explore on this topic and to answer all our questions, I find pleasure in inviting Prakash Bhai. Prakash Bhai, who is a certified leadership coach and soft skills trainer, who has inspired the transformation of more than 2,500 individuals in 11 countries. He holds an MBA in marketing, MSc in psychoneurobics, and a host of certifications. Prakash Bhai has been practicing meditation for last 20 years. So Prakash Bhai, a very warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. And I would like you to request to explore on the topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's an absolute privilege to be here in this August gathering and to be asked to share some of my insights on the subject. I feel jealousy is a universal phenomenon. It's prevalent across the globe, gender neutral, across all sectors of the society. I know that from the time I've been in school, we've got ranks. I could be the first rank or the second rank, and that would give me a lot of privileges, attention, and I have a lot of rewards from just being at that number 1 or 2 position, or even number 3. And so from that system onwards, I can see how people will start feeling jealous when somebody receives all the attention and all the accolades. When I look at the corporate world as well, we do have times when systems have been designed in a way that they let individuals to excel and grow, and they become very individualistic in the approach to work, whilst you could actually change the system to see how it could be more organizational driven, team driven, to see how you could be great as an individual, but we really want you to work together as a team. And we don't want people to actually have bad feelings if somebody is doing well and excelling. And so while it is certainly a universal phenomenon, it's not something very nice. Like you just mentioned in the introduction, that there is this word called hatred that goes along with the feeling of jealousy. And so it doesn't make a person feel very comfortable. In fact, we do look at jealousy as a feeling of hatred, of inadequacy, of something that is missing within me. And it does project a lot of ill feeling towards another person that we may be jealous of. So it's not something that is very nice. It's not very good, although there could be a myth sometimes that jealousy, the cause of jealousy could be love. I mean, because I love somebody so much, I am jealous. But that is not the case, because true love is unconditional and doesn't really have such an ill feeling attached to it at all. And we could continue loving without this tough and negative emotion. Also, some of them have this mindset about jealousy being something that is nice to have because it probably helps you to go forward in a faster fashion. It helps you to grow. It helps you to be driven. Well, it might be, but that's a very negative state to be driven with, rather than having a more positive state or a positive motive to drive yourself. And there are positive motives. You don't need to burn yourself and feel terrible whilst you're pushing yourself forward in life. So there are a lot of myths around it. One way I like to look at jealousy is that I feel unhappy looking at somebody else being happy. And that's an interesting way to look at jealousy. And that way, I'm sure I'm kind of motivated to stop feeling it, because somebody's feeling great, somebody's having a nice day, somebody's enjoying themselves, and having them or looking at them the way they are, internally, I start burning. I don't like that. And so that's a very, very, not good way of looking at things. It's quite a hypocritical way of looking at things as well, because we wish people have a very good day, have a nice time, enjoy yourself, all the very best, hope you're successful. And then when I look at them being successful and enjoying themselves, I don't feel good about it. I'm not very comfortable. And when I see them actually falling and I see them failing, I feel okay about myself. So that is not at all a nice space to be in. And we don't want the world to be in that space at all. And so overcoming jealousy is a beautiful topic, and I love to see how I could do justice to it by trying and helping you understand what are some of the signs of jealousy? What's the root cause of it? And then what are the solutions to it? And we would look at those solutions at a much deeper level. Whilst we'll also experience a few, there are a few places where I've had some experience of how can I actually go beyond it and feel complete, whole, very positive, and what sort of energy does it really bring inside when I'm actually free from such a feeling of jealousy? So let's just try and begin with this particular idea of signs. What are some of the signs of a person who's jealous? And I put a few signs away. One is berating. When I'm jealous, I berate other people, especially they could be successful, they may be doing some things very nice, but I'm always criticizing what they're doing or the way they are. And I'm just saying, okay, that person may be good here, but on the other area of their lives, they're not so nice. So I berate them. I don't tolerate praise of them. So if I hear people praising another person, I can't tolerate it. And I feel terrible within my own self. There is a sense of restlessness, internal restlessness. My mind is not at ease. I can't experience peace when I'm seeing people, being praised, when I'm actually seeing somebody else very successful, or when I am gripped by this emotion of jealousy. It triggers various other emotions. So hatred is just one, but anger, feelings of inadequacy, a lot of insecurity is also related and associated with this emotion of jealousy. Uh, my ambition is driven by jealousy and not by my own potential. I want to do things because I'm jealous. Inaccurate decisions. Because I'm jealous, I jump into certain conclusions and I start taking decisions which can be counterproductive to the reason why I wanted to actually take those decisions. And I may not even achieve my goals, or even if I do, I'm not going to enjoy them much. And it is a very costly affair. It can turn costly because there are a lot of consequences of actions that I take, which are driven out of jealousy, and therefore they could be very costly. And I will explain that in a moment. And also, it takes me completely out of focus. Uh, One of the things I have been doing for a long while is I've been meditating. And I know this, that when I'm meditating, I need myself to be able to feel that I'm okay and you're okay. And I don't want any negative emotion to actually occupy my mind. If I truly want to experience my own self, if I truly want to gain the, let's say, the nectar that comes through meditation. And so that requires focus of my mind. It's impossible for me to have that focus if I was jealous of somebody. It's impossible for me to focus on anything. Let's say at work, I'm jealous of somebody. My attention is constantly on that person. More than me wanting to do well, my attention is how the other person is doing. So it's very difficult to have a state of focus. I mentioned about decisions being wrong, inaccurate decisions. Let me tell you a classic example of something happened in the Gulf. It was in the Middle East when we had the Prime Minister of India who was doing his rounds across the globe, and he came to India. And you have all these great businessmen who come there and they pledge a lot of funds towards the country. And there was this great businessman who was also invited, and he pledged a huge amount of funds not because he wanted to, because he had those funds, or because he felt like. He did that only because you had other businessmen who pledged a huge amount of funds, and they were in tunes of millions of dollars. And he also pledged that. And what he had to do because of that is he had to take a lot of loans. He had to borrow to be able to fulfill those funds that he had pledged for. And eventually he could not pay them back. He went bankrupt and he had to actually shut shop completely. And that's the way uh, life was for him, because of him just wanting to do something because he was jealous. There's another incident and that's a very funny incident. A friend of mine, um, he had his wife who would, usually put him down because he didn't know how to cook. And so once he wanted to just prove to his wife that he could as well cook, as because he was getting a little jealous that she could do so much in the kitchen, but and you keep criticizing me. Let me also show you that I can cook. And so once she just wanted to make a cup of coffee for him, he said, "Don't worry, I'll get it done myself." So he goes into the kitchen, and he's trying to get the milk to boil, and he's not able to do it, and he's there for about 15 minutes. The milk is on the stove, but it's just not, it's on, you've got the flame below it, but it just does not boil. And so his wife comes there, she looks at what he's doing, gets frustrated, puts her hand on her head and says, "What are you doing? That's not the pot of milk. What you're actually trying to heat is the flour for or it's the flour that we got to make pancakes with. So that's also the same color. It was similar to milk, but it wasn't milk." And he was trying to just prove that he's one up against his wife and he could do things himself. And when he spoke to me, he said, "I was driven by jealousy, and I was very jealous that I couldn't do a few things in the kitchen." So that could also happen when we are jealous of people. Let me tell you another classic example of a sign of people who are jealous. And this is with certain people that I have met with whilst I used to live in Dubai. And so, what people will do is they want to look smart, they want to look elegant, they want to look really great. And so, they will borrow money to ensure that they show that they have a beautiful lifestyle. And so, they want to live in the best place, they want to drive the best of cars, they want to wear the most brilliant suits and boots. And when you look at them, it's, you're like, wow, here's a guy who must be absolutely successful. And, they kind of attracted towards these people. But what I found, and there are a huge amount of people doing that, they cannot afford to do that with the earning that they actually have. And so they kind of borrow to be able to live up to that standard, just to show people that I'm good. Just to be a part of that community that they actually come from. And so that's why it's not the best thing to do. And when I say it's costly not just because of in terms of monetary value, but it's also costly in terms of, I have seen, as an example, people who can get jealous, and that jealousy can drive them to even kill the other person, and it's that costly. They get killed, and then they think they can get away. They finally get caught, they're behind bars, or they've actually got to go through some very long-term sentences, whatever the case may be, but they have certain charges against them, and they also have to pay for it. And so it can be very costly. Now, what's the root cause of this emotion where you actually start having that bad feeling that comes inside for others? Let me just try and dissect that for us. One way of looking at the root cause is comparison. I'm comparing myself with others. And then when I feel that somebody is less than me, I can feel egoistic. And when somebody is better than me in an area or maybe many areas, then I start feeling jealous. And so we might say comparison is the root cause, but not necessarily, because there is something more deeper. And let's try and see that deep rooted, because when you compare, it's fair enough if you compare. And sometimes it's very visible and apparent that somebody is doing better than you in a certain area, somebody is greater than you in some other aspect of life. That is one aspect. And even if that comparison happens, that would not usually trigger us to jealousy. But the reason why it actually happens is, to start with, there is an inner sense of inadequacy that I feel. And that's where it all starts from. I don't feel full. I don't feel complete. I don't have the sense of, I would say, contentment within my own self. And because of that, and this is usually a perception, it's not necessarily a reality. I may not be inadequate. I might have it all, but I perceive myself as a person who's inadequate. How many of us have had people come up to us and appreciate us of things that we never thought we actually had? And suddenly they tell us, you know what, I've noticed that you have this quality in you. And then you go, oh, really? Is that what you see? Well, I never thought I had that quality. And so this is more a perception, and it could be completely unreal. But we perceive ourselves to be inadequate in some sense, in some fashion, in some way. Now, what happens because of that inadequacy? I try to make myself feel more adequate. And so I start filling myself with things. I start picking a lot of things. I start attaching myself with a lot of labels and tags. And so I start possessing usually materialistic things around me. I'm starting to possess. It could be people, it could be positions, it could be certain prestigious things, but I'm starting to now possess things. And what happens with that is that becomes my identity. All those possessions that I have around me, that's my identity. And so I feel a little bit more complete now. I'm not in that space of inadequacy. Why? Because I have started to possess things, and now, I am this position. And so I'm fantastic. I am this education qualification. And you know what? I'm going to get the best qualification because I really want to feel more complete. So I'm going to try and be better than everybody else that I know within my circle of connections. So I want to be more qualified. So I get myself with that extra degree. And yeah, so that's my identity now. And so I start feeling a little bit adequate. But there is one problem in this identity. Everything that I thought was my identity were these possessions that I started acquiring from outside. And therefore, what happens is they're always constantly subject to change. They're never permanent. And it changes in me, and those change in others as well. Just as much as I thought that I'm one of the most qualified now because of that extra degree that I got, somebody else comes up with a higher qualification, and then boom, what happens to all this particular sense of completeness that I had? It just gets shattered. And what happens after that is I have fear, anxiety, anger, insecurity, discomfort. I have this inferiority complex. All of these things start coming because I'm actually holding myself with this false identity. That affects my self-esteem, because I mean, who likes to be angry? Who likes to have fear? Who likes to feel uncomfortable? Who likes to feel inferior? We don't. But because of the false identity, when I start actually having all these, then that feeds into my self-esteem and makes it feel even worse. I don't feel very good about myself, and that makes me feel even more inadequate. And so then again, when I'm comparing myself with others, I feel even worse than I was at an earlier space. So this is a very vicious cycle of jealousy. And it's very important for us to break this pattern, is to move out of it. And what is it that we should do when I'm stuck in this vicious circle, where I'm seeing myself as this person who is having that false identity, that's feeding into a lot of negative emotions. It makes me feel horrible. And that is also hurting my own self-image. And then it comes back into making me feel even more inadequate. So I got to reverse this in some fashion. And for that, I've got a few areas that I would like us to look at. And these are certain tips that are going to be very nice. Now, before I get there, I'd like to just let you know that this particular vicious cycle is horrible. It's nothing that we should try and stay in. And we could get stuck in it, but the good news is we can get out of it. Ideally, we don't get into such a cycle. And if you do get, it can be a trap. It can be so subtle that I don't even realize it, which is why I showed you some of the signs of it. And one of the things that has to really drive us out of it is knowing that it is not a good space to be in, and it's completely terrible. And one of the things about comparisons, when we are comparing ourselves with others, it just let you know how terrible that can be. I'm sure we've all heard of, I'm just thinking about this particular person. I think her name was, mm, okay, you would probably know the person as the one who's a choreographer of Cats and the Phantom of the Opera. I think it was Lynn was the second name. I'm not sure. It starts with G, the first name. But here's this person who, at the age of 8, was in school and she was terrible in her studies. She couldn't focus. She was very fidgety. And so the class teacher calls her mother and says, "You know what? Your daughter is not a good student and she's fidgeting. She can't focus. She doesn't do well with studies. I think she needs some help. And I don't think she's really a good student. So just see if you can get some help." And so mother takes her to a psychologist, and psychologist looks and observes and understands a little bit about this girl, and he just lets her be in that room while he indicates to her mother to just come outside to the balcony whilst he turns the radio on, leaves the girl there, and takes the mother out into the balcony, and he says, "Just observe your daughter." And she's observing the daughter, who just stands up when she's all alone with the radio playing. She starts dancing. And what he tells her mother is that she is a dancer. So to put her to dance school and she's going to excel in it. And that's what her mother does. She puts her in dance school. She excels. And because of that, when he comes back to school and she's studying with the other students, she starts excelling even in her studies. So it just goes to see that it's sometimes it's inappropriate for us just to compare with others and believe that, we are less than them. We are not doing an apple to apple comparison usually when we make ourselves compared with other people. And so we got to really feel ourselves free from that sort of comparison and not get trapped into that, because otherwise we would have never seen such a lovely person in Lynn if we had to compare ourselves. So let's get to the solutions and see what can we then do about jealousy. Here are 5 solutions that I put forward. The first one, we need to have the right awareness of the self. And we'll get into the details of this as we move forward. The second one is, it's good to race, it's good to compete, but there needs to be a more holistic race, and I'll share a little bit more on it as we go forward. It's great to put on a student's hat. Many times we have a critiques hat. We're trying to criticize people. We're just comparing and we're just living with that comparison. But when I start having a student's hat, then it kind of gives us a very different, let's say, consequence. There is a certain shift internally in terms of the mentality that I have that we need to see as well. And last but not the least, we need to start bestowing energy. And I'll speak about how bestowing energy onto others will save you from taking in this negative energy of jealousy. Let's look at the first one. It's on self-aware. What is this all about? There's a lot of awareness that we have. Awareness of what's around us. Awareness of our physical surroundings, circumstances, the world outside. We got the internet at our fingertips, awareness for the entire globe. Whilst we have the internet that connects us to the world outside, the awareness that I'm talking about is the inner net that connects me to the world inside. And that's the awareness that I feel is missing when we have this sense of jealousy that takes us over. So when I look at this inner awareness, what am I talking about? It's interesting to see that usually our awareness is based on the physical aspects of me, which includes my body, it includes my possessions, it includes my positions, it includes the prestigious things that I have with me, all those things that I'm actually holding on to, things that I have acquired over a period of time. That awareness is very clear for me. It's very apparent. What's the awareness that I need to now have? I need to understand that whilst I have this physical experience, I am a spiritual being having this physical experience. And it's that understanding and that shift, which is a very crucial shift for me to make from the physical body and the physical experience, who might have occasional spiritual experiences, to the person who's actually spiritual. That's me, the spiritual being who is having a physical experience. Now, that turn would actually start making me understand who I truly am, a spiritual being. And when you look at yourself as a spiritual being, and we will start seeing how this actually develops. What really happens is your qualities, your possessions, your treasures are abundant. They're immense. They're full. They're complete. It could be peace, love, purity, bliss, truth, honesty, whatever it might be. The moment I get into this understanding and the idea and the awareness of the fact that I am the spiritual being, I'm instantly connecting myself to these treasures. And when I actually slip out of that and start becoming aware of the physical being, then I'm, of course, driven by everything external. And then it's but natural for me to make those comparisons at a physical level. And I'm able to see all those differences. And then I get trapped into this emotion of jealousy. So, firstly, it's this awareness and then a realization from that awareness. So, when I'm aware of myself as a being who's spiritual, I need to have a realization, not just theoretical that I am a spiritual being, but I need to experience it. And I'm sure we've all had the experience of peace. We've all had the experience of joy. We've all had the experience of compassion and love in our lives. And that is something we understand is a quality that I possess. It's probably not something that happens every single moment of my life, which is perhaps the reason why we may not come to terms with it. But when I start, let's say, shifting this idea, then I start having realizations in that particular area. I start feeling it. And then it's no longer, I will be peaceful when so and so happens. I will be happy when I get that promotion. I will be happy. So those are conditional ways of looking at the self. What happens as a realization when I shift the awareness is I start realizing that I am, not I will be. I don't have to do things to become that, but I already am all those things that I ever wanted in my life, but not at the physical level, at a metaphysical level. So the awareness of the self is a metaphysical being, and then the realization that I am all of those aspects. And when I start from these two spaces, awareness and the realization, then there is a transformation. And the transformation doesn't happen instantly. It's not an overnight thing. It's progressive. It's evolutionary. It'll take me a little time. And so I start with awareness, I go to realization, and then slowly but steadily, they say, as you keep repeating something, which is the truth inside of your head, and if you're more and more aware of it, it becomes one of your personality traits. And that's what transformation, that's how the transformation happens. So let's just see, let's do a small demonstration, a quick one, a very interesting one. But there has to be two things before you actually get into this experience. A is acceptance. We always have to start from a space of acceptance, acceptance of yourself, of the person that you are, the way you are, that you are whole, you are complete, and you are resourceful. So I'm whole, I'm complete, I'm resourceful. Acceptance from that space is very important. And trust in yourself. Trust. Because when I start accepting and I trust myself, that's when I can start improving, changing, and transforming. But when I'm not accepting myself and I'm rejecting myself completely, saying, no, I'm not this peaceful person. I am a very peaceless guy. I'm not this person who's very compassionate. I'm a person who's very short-tempered. I'm a very angry person. If I'm going to actually carry that script inside, I'm going to be stuck there. So I've got to let go of that script, knowing that those are things that I've acquired. I've acquired it over a period of time. I've seen people getting angry. I thought it worked. I've started acquiring that. It's worked in my life sometimes. And so I start getting angry. It is not natural for me. It may become normal, but it's not natural. So what is natural? Peace is natural. Compassion is natural. Love is natural. Happiness is natural. So I need to understand that. And so that is the space of acceptance I want to start from. Because only when I accept it and embrace that idea, will I be able to experience it? Will I be able to realize it? And that's when the transformation happens. All right, so let's just sit straight wherever we might be. Just sit straight. Once we become aware of everything around us, the lighting, the sounds, the people, you're listening to me, you're watching me, your eyes are wide open, that's perfectly fine. We simply want to just be aware of everything's there that's around you right now, in this moment. And as you're aware of everything, just accept them as they are. You're not judging anything. You're not pulling, no pushing, nothing. Whatever the energy is around, you are simply accepting. And then you simply look at yourself as this being, as an identity that is two. One is a physical identity, which is real, absolutely real, physical identity. But another real identity, which is hidden to your naked eyes, but you can feel it, you can sense it. You can feel it through your thoughts, through your memories, through your the capacity to analyze. That I, whilst I have this physical experience, am a metaphysical being, a spiritual being, a being of peace. And so when you look at yourself as a being of peace, I'd like you to just think about the word peace. And I want you to make meaning of it. What does peace mean to you? It could be tranquility, serenity. It could be a space where there is absence of noise, absence of wasteful thinking, unnecessary thinking, negative thinking. That space is peace. And as you embrace this meaning of peace, I'd like you to just feel that in you right now. The serenity, the tranquility, the space where your mind has nothing else which is negative, unnecessary, but it's here and now, it's in this moment, it's with us, it's free from any judgment, it's easily just flowing. The thoughts that we are creating of peace in itself is peace. And you're feeling very comfortable, easy, smooth. You allow yourself to be there for a moment. And this experience is not alien to me. It's an experience that I've had several times. And I'm just experiencing that tranquil, quiet, silent feeling. Okay, thank you. So the feeling of peace, that's who you truly are. And so from self-awareness, we're talking about awareness of yourself as a spiritual being, realizing that I am these beautiful qualities, that I'm resourceful, I'm full, I'm complete. And then when you have the realization, and you just are able to bring that to the surface of your mind, you're able to transform slowly but steadily. You'll start feeling, initially it may be difficult. Initially you'll say, I'm not having an experience. It's fine, it's perfectly okay. But slowly I start experiencing it. I start feeling good. I start feeling peaceful. And when I repeat this over a period of time, considering I have these two other elements, I accept and I trust myself. Then I'm going to grow this self-awareness and I'm going to become better and greater. Okay, the next one. It's good to race. It's good to compete. but not with others. You're not trying to do a race with other people. Like you to do the race with your own self. See how you can gain mastery on these four subjects. These are like the four legs of the table. And even if one is not doing well, you don't feel comfortable and then you start feeling jealous of others. So just look at yourself in the dimension of these four areas: body, mind, wealth, relationships. So within our own selves, just check yourself in these four areas and see how I can constantly keep growing in these four areas. What am I doing to be fit in terms of a physical body that I have? I don't have to compare myself and feel jealous about somebody who's 25 years younger to me. No, not required. I know that wherever I am, if I can do things to keep myself active, I'm good. To keep myself fit, I'm good. So look at yourself from how I was yesterday and see if I can become better today in terms of my fitness. And so that's a good way to see how I can race against myself in terms of a physical agility, physical ability. Well, we look at the mind. A beautiful way of looking at the mind is to see to what extent am I able to manage my mind, gain mastery over the mind. Does the mind get easily swayed by the environment? Whatever it sees outside, it immediately gets influenced. That is a weak mind. Whereas a mind that is strong, that is powerful, that is healthy, is a mind that does not get influenced by the environment, but is able to create a beautiful environment for itself, whatever it likes. So whatever you want to feel right now, you just create a thought and you have that feeling there. That's why they say peace is just a thought away. Hey, how's that? Because you think peace, you understand peace, you accept peace, you are peaceful. I mean, that might be a process I've mentioned to you, but it takes about a second for that actually process to take place. I am peaceful. Okay, so I create my inner environment of peace, and then I project that into the external environment. So rather than receiving and getting influence from outside, I create and then I send this energy outside and influence outside. So that is about the mind, creating something. So how was the mind yesterday? It's good to have a journal. It's good to reflect mornings, in the nights before going to sleep. Check the mind to see were you able to have mastery over it, or did you become a slave to it? And so when you start seeing that I'm not going to be influenced by everything that is coming from outside, bingo, you got that strong mind. And so practice it every day. Reflect back, look at it. Take pauses every single day. We do something called an SOS. You might have heard of it. Stand back, observe, and steer. Something beautiful in terms of how you can strengthen the mind. Wherever you are, whenever you are, it's a good practice, of course, in a safe place. So I'm sending this, I got 25 emails and I'm sending these responses one after the other. And I'm at my fifth email and my mind is so clogged. I just stop, stand back, observe and see what's happening in the mind. I say, oh my God, it's got thoughts about the first email that I sent to somebody and I still am holding that particular emotion of that person. Not required. What is it required now? Oh, sixth email. What am I doing? I'm sending an email to so-and-so. Focus, let go and move forward. Stand back, observe. In fact, the moment you observe the mind, and if you find that something is not happening which is required, it automatically just goes off and then you go back to focusing. The fact that I'm not observing my mind itself keeps it in that space which is not good for me. Which is why, they say darkness. What is darkness? It's the absence of light. The moment you have light, darkness goes. So when I'm not aware, I have all these useless stuff in my head. The moment I become aware, it's like the spotlight there, and then there's a clarity, immediately clear stuff. So that's to do with the mind. Wealth. If I'm wealthy and I'm doing great for myself, I see somebody else who's wealthy. Good, you're wealthy, I'm wealthy too. However, I need to broaden the perspective of wealth. What is wealth really? And I look at wealth in so many different aspects, and we got to really know when I speak of wealth, the first thing about wealth is your thoughts. Something I just mentioned about the mind, right? If I'm able to create thoughts that I want to, whenever I require, I'm really rich, right? I might have all the other physical richness, but if I don't have the ability to create the thoughts that I think is good for me, poor. Yeah, you've had people who say, I know, but I don't know how to think that way. I mean, it's so difficult for me to actually think positively. Well, learn it, develop it, and become that person who is positive. So your thoughts is your treasure. Stop wasting them. When you're thinking negative, you're thinking useless, you're wasting them. So create great thoughts, because thoughts become things, and you are who you repeatedly think about yourself. So your repeated thoughts become you. So your thoughts are your greatest treasure, in fact, more than anything else, thoughts. Then your other treasures are your virtues, your values, the qualities that you have. It's your character. They say money lost, nothing's lost. Health lost, something's lost. But character lost, everything is lost. So your virtues, your values, your character, that's wealth. The wisdom that you have, the capacity of the intellect to discern right from wrong. It's a very important virtue. It's also a treasure. It's a massive treasure. Like we know about King Solomon, because he had this wisdom, he was given everything else. Why? Because if you know what is right and wrong, you take care of everything else. But if you don't have this wisdom, you might have everything else and you lose it. So this wisdom is such a great treasure. It helps to gain what we want, and in the absence of it, gets everything away. Buddha is Buddha because he's enlightened, and it's about the same wisdom. Yeah. So that wisdom is also a treasure. What are the other treasures? Huge amount of treasure is the time. Watch the way you are using your time. If you're able to be purposeful and productive, you're using this treasure of time greatly. And therefore, you are a rich person, because you got your time being spent in a worthwhile fashion in the direction of what you believe is important for you, what you believe is your purpose. And so these are certain treasures also, including obviously physical wealth. So if you look at yourself and start seeing, what can I do to become more wealthy? That's great. So race with yourself and see how I can grow in this area as well of wealth. And last but not the least is relationships. What am I doing about my relationship? How am I striking harmony in relationships? And so for that, it's important to see 10% of the relationships that are very important to you in your life, and see how you give quality time and effort and energy to it. Remember, relationships just don't thrive automatically. It requires your energy. And when I have good energy going in that direction, qualitative time in that direction of that relationship that's important, or those relationships that are important for me, it's great. Two relationships we really always forget. We always think about relations with other people. Most important is your relationship with yourself. In fact, you have got a good relationship with yourself that reflects in relationships with others and with the Supreme. These two relationships we normally forget, but we should first straighten and start having a right connection with these two relationships. And when I start seeing a great relationship with myself and the Supreme, then I see that my relationship with everybody else starts becoming beautiful. All right, so that's the next aspect of the holistic race. What do we have in the student's hat? This is a beautiful aspect for us to understand. When I'm a student, when I look at somebody who is, let's say, doing extremely well in a certain area, I could actually look at that person, compare myself, hey, I'm not doing so well, I could feel jealous. Or if I had the student's hat, I could look at that person and say, wow, the person's doing so well, let me try and learn something from him or her. And so when I have the student's hat on, it means that I'm doing extremely well. That's why they say if you're a student, you're constantly growing. And if you're growing, you're thriving, you're enjoying, you're appreciating, and you're just moving forward. But if I'm not appreciating, if I'm not being a student, if I'm not being a learner, then I'm depreciating. Yeah. So that's not a very good place to be in. So we need to be a great student. What else do we have? So the fourth part was a mental shift. When I say a mental shift, so let's look at a traditional way of looking at things, which is not very good for us, which is if you win, I lose. You're successful. Hey, you know what? I'm not so successful. I've got a 5% raise and I'm very happy. And suddenly I get to know that you got a 10% raise. Oh my God. So it means I've lost. And I suddenly start feeling bad, depressed, horrible. And I start actually feeling jealous about you because I felt that we were on equal playing field. I did as well as you did, but why did you get that extra promotion or that extra, you know, uh, let's say, salary increment? What's the way in which you should look at things is there is enough for all of us to win. If you win today, it's fair enough. You got the 10%, great. I'm going to continue working as I am, probably harder to see how I could be the next person in line to get that 10%. Or, wow, I got a 5%, you got a 10%, which means possibilities. I could actually get 10% next time. I always thought 5% was the limit, but you just showed us that the limit could be broken. And thanks to you, because you grew, it means that there is more possibility. So tomorrow it means that 15% also is possible. So what we're trying to see is that when somebody is growing, somebody is moving forward, it does not mean that you have been left behind and you're going to be back, but only means that if you look at that person, it opens up aspects of possibility for you. And they win, I can also win. It's not necessary that one should win, one should lose. That is a scarcity mentality. All of us can win is an abundance mentality. And when I get into that shift of abundance mentality, magic happens with me, with my productivity, with my relationships. And things really start growing in a very positive frame. The last one, bestow energy. Here we go. This also in the Harvard Business Review, they call this meta meditation. So I'd like to just take you through a small process of meditation, but this is beautiful. And it obviously happens after you've understood yourself from the way we actually started our earlier process of self-awareness and we moved forward. And that's when we can actually start doing this. Now, what does this say? It says, be aware of your thoughts and start creating thoughts which are positive with true self-awareness of yourself, accepting yourself for who you truly are as a spiritual being and trusting yourself, knowing that you can achieve whatever you want, you can grow in a fashion that you really would like to. It's possible. We are not limited except by our own thoughts. We are resourceful and we can grow. So start with that awareness and then start having self-compassionate thoughts. Thinking about yourself and having self-compassion. And we'll do that process. I'll just show what it is. Once you do this for yourself, we then extend it to others. And so it could be to people that I would usually be jealous of. It's nice to bring that person in front of me and then create compassionate thoughts for them. Because at one space, I'm looking at myself as a spiritual being. And if I can do that, then it means that other people are also spiritual beings. And so I got to then start changing the way I look at them, my vision. And when I change my vision, my world changes. Yes, it's the way you look at things that really matter. And it starts with how you look at yourself. The way I look at myself, and then the way I look at the world outside. The vision is very important. And then you shift your vision, you shift your world. So let's do this practice. Let's do this practice. All right, so let's just relax, be easy, be comfortable. Become aware of yourself as a spiritual being in this physical dimension. When I say spiritual being, I'm just talking about an energy that is driving this physical energy, a metaphysical energy that is more superior, that has the capacity to create thoughts, feelings, to make decisions, and that's able to have memories. That's beyond anything that's physical. So I'm this spiritual energy. And I say spiritual, it also means because the qualities of this being are that of peace, love, and happiness. So I am the spiritual energy. And I wish for myself to be safe, to be happy, to be peaceful, to be pure, to be successful. So all the wishes that you would normally want yourself to be, whilst you already are, you're still having that wish for yourself. It's a very beautiful space to be. I wish for myself to be all those great things, to be having a great amount of physical abilities, to have mental agility and strength, and to have emotional maturity, to be wealthy, to have the best of relationships. I wish for the best for myself, now and always. And as I do that for myself, I now conjure the image of the other person that I see in front of me, who I sometimes do feel jealous of. It could be anybody. But I bring the image of that person in front of me. And from this abundant space of true self-awareness that I am a spiritual being, I have compassion for this other person. I don't want to take anything from that person. I don't want anything from that person. But I'm a bestower of it because I'm full and I'm having this great positive energy inside me. I'm compassionate. And I'm able to send pure, positive energy to the other person. And I say these words: I wish for you to be safe. I wish for you to be happy. I wish for you to be successful, wealthy, to have the greatest of relationships, to have the best of bodies, and to have a very fine mind. And so, from a very sincere, genuine space, I would like this to come. From this abundant mentality, knowing that when I grow, you grow, when you grow, I grow. We can all grow together. And so I wish for the best for you. Thank you. So now, it's interesting to see this whole shift that we are having and that we've made. From self-awareness, I'll show you a beautiful way in how we have been able to master this. Here we are. So when we saw it was inadequacy, which led to possessiveness, which then had the identity of everything that I have acquired. And because that was temporary and always changing, it would trigger fear, anger, insecurity, discomfort, inferiority, and that affects your self-esteem. Now, what are we changing it to? Adequacy. And so there's flow, there's abundance, and therefore I am bestowing rather than taking. And so my identity is very different from taking in, from receiving, and from what I have acquired. An identity is now of that of a spiritual being that is resourceful, whole, complete. And I'm able to identify myself with peace, love, purity, happiness, and all those beautiful qualities. A very different identity. And therefore there's more compassion, there's more peace for me. And that enhances my self-image, and that makes me feel even more adequate. And so we shift that vicious cycle into the virtue cycle. And so that's how we can free ourselves from this terrible feeling of jealousy. And we can actually breathe well and do well. I remember doing a session for a corporate. It was a program that was on balanced living or work-life balance, one of those things. And so I did that session for this particular group. And by the end of the session, it was a half-a-day session, the MD of the company came up and he thanked me and he said, you know what, we're really so grateful for the session that Prakash did. And I'm sure he worked really hard for it. He must have spent maybe a few hours, maybe a day, maybe 2 days to prepare for this beautiful session. And what I told him is, well, it's not about a day or two's preparation. It's probably 40 years of my livelihood, of my living, of the experience that I've actually put together in this particular workshop. And of course, we had a nice laugh and we enjoyed ourselves, but that made me think, you know, when we're getting jealous of people, we are looking at the fruits. You know what? Somebody's enjoying those fruits and I'm jealous because I also want those fruits. But you know what I forget? I forget the great intense efforts that somebody has made to bear those fruits. And so it's possible. I love those fruits and it's perfectly fine for me to also want to have those great fruits, but not to feel jealous about it. go back and see how you can make efforts, intense efforts, to help yourself grow and to become and to bear those fruits that you always wanted to. So, with that, I'd like to say thank you to all of you, and I'm open for any questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prakash Bhai, for your beautiful and deep insights. The way you spoke about relationships. So I just would like to ask one question to you. Like when someone is jealous for us, like about us, they are jealous about us. So how can we empathize them and not get disturbed? Or are we supposed to empathize them or are we not?
Well, it's interesting to understand with jealousy. I'm really looking at the spotlight on myself and how can I really help myself with the feeling of jealousy. To a large extent, I have no control over the other person. Largely, I don't. But I can try and understand what is that. Why is that person feeling jealous of me? Does that person feel jealous of me because of the lack of trust? And so then I got to start seeing how can I make more deposits in that relationship to build trust so that person feels they trust me a lot. And so when they start trusting me, then there's no need to be jealous. Or if there's something else that they want from me, and they feel that those are the fruits that you've got, Prakash. I mean, you're doing all these things and you got all that stuff, and I'm jealous of you because of that. And if I get to know it, can I try and help and support them to also develop in that area and become, good there? If that's a possibility, then yeah, support and help and say, you know what, whatever you might be jealous of me for, I'm ready to give myself to you to see that I help you and support you in that journey as well. If you like to be, wanting to go in that same space, because obviously they're jealous of something that you have, you possess that they may not have, and also if we can support them, we're letting them know that they are adequate where they are. They are full, they're complete, they are resourceful. There's this beautiful thing about you can be the best rate version of yourself or the second rate version of somebody else. So let them know that they are beautiful the way they are, and let them become the first rate version of themselves rather than being a second rate version of me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was indeed an eye opener. I really liked the way you took us through the whole concept of overcoming jealousy. Like you very beautifully explained the root cause and then solutions to overcome jealousy. And I really liked the example that you shared with all of us about your friend, because out of jealousy, he could not focus on what he is using. And instead of milk, he used another powder or a flour. And also the mother and the daughter example, very beautifully you explained. So thank you so much for sharing with all of us your insights. And thank you for joining us. Thank you so much for giving your time. I
Thank you.
also would like to thank our audience. Thank you so much for joining with us tonight. And our next week's talk is the topic for the next week talk is it's my time to shine. And it will be next week, Friday, that is 18th of December, and same time, 7 to 8 p.m. We'll see you all again. Thank you. Take care. Keep safe. Stay well. Good night. Om Shanti.
Thank you, and Om Shanti.